When your first layer of glaze is dry, you can start to do your second layer. Now, if you wanted to do the trick I talked about earlier, where we have the deeper parts on your texture are the darker color and you have a lighter color on top, you can use the sponge at your table and you just dip the sponge in water and squeeze it out so it's just damp. And you're just going to kind of use the sponge to remove the highest layer of your darker color. And if you're doing it correctly, you should start to see your texture reveal itself a little more clearly just by having the raised parts lighter, and the parts that are a little deeper will be your darker version, your darker color. So I'm already starting to see my pointillism dots here are looking pretty dark, and this little firework is looking pretty dark too. You may have to re-wet the sponge at some point. You don't want it to be dripping wet because then you may lose all of the work that you did and it may kind of remove all the glaze. But just a little bit of moisture in the sponge ought to do it. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start to put my lighter color on top. So my lighter color is gonna be this sassy yellow color. So I'm gonna add that to my list. Who gets to name these anyway? Such funny names. I love it. It is kind of sassy, this yellow. Mix it up with your paintbrush. And remember, you're using the blue handled paintbrush, not the one that was in your watercolor set. Really want to use almost like the side of the paintbrush for this layer. Kind of try and get the raised parts with the yellow and leave those deeper grooves with the red. So I'm trying to just get it in the raised parts if I can. It's not always going to work out, but as much of the texture as you can kind of show through, the more interesting it's going to look. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Probably paint another coat on the sides. This is actually going to mix. When it fires, the yellow and the red will kind of fuse together and become that orangey color. At least that's what I'm guessing is going to happen. That's another one of the fun things about glazing, is that there's a little bit of surprise involved. You don't always know how it's going to turn out. Okay, so remember, you're not putting any glaze on the bottom. You want to be kind of even with your brush strokes, because whatever you do with the glaze, however it looks, is going to be real similar to how it looks when it comes out of the kiln. Now the colors will change. The colors right now when they go on are kind of chalky, and they don't look like the shiny glaze that we're kind of imagining. That's because the glass hasn't melted yet. When you put it through the kiln and the temperature heats up to the right amount, the glass that's in the glaze will actually melt and fuse to the surface. And that's what makes it look shiny. And that's when it's vitrified, is when it has that shine on it. So that's my second coat. Once this second coat dries, I have one coat of sassy yellow, I'm going to paint my last coat. My third coat, I'm going to use the sassy yellow again. So I don't think I need to show you that on the video, as long as you make sure that you keep track of how many coats you have, so that the following coat can go on a third coat. Okay, 3 coats is really going to make it look nice. When you're finished, make sure you really snap these caps on. You have to kind of hear them snap, because we don't want the next person to have a puddle of glaze in there at their table. All right, so happy glazing, everyone. I hope you have fun making your tiles look interesting. If you like the way the tile looks, then you'll probably end up using something similar when you glaze your pinch pot.